They don't ring bells here. The shift begins when the tanks far below floor 13 groan. A low, cavernous swell, thick with old pressure and chemical breath, rolls upward through the tower's spine and rattles the ceiling rails loose. It's not sound, not really. It's presence. The tower saying, "You are still here, and so is it." That's what wakes me. Not light, not alarms, that sound. Like a continent rolling over in its sleep, tectonic and slow. Memory-rich. I open my eyes into the damp dark, the glowless slurry haze that never quite leaves the air. For a second, I forget where I am, and then the caller reminds me. It doesn't shock, not yet, just hums once the way a bone might if it could whisper. The message is clear. No sudden joy, no vertical thoughts, no prayer. The implant at the base of my skull is patient but thorough. I rise slow, vertebra by vertebra. I've learned to make my spine a staircase, not a fuse. My feet peel off the floor with the sound of wet paper. Sleep mucus again. The vents drip at night. Condensation thick with tank breath and human runoff. We don't call it water anymore. It's not. I wipe my soles with a gauze strip kept under the mattress. Old habit, older superstition. You don't track that fluid out into the tanks. Not if you want the tanks to ignore you. I dress. Shift wrap is dermave. Lab-grown skin slow, recycled from expired organ vats and cloned epidermis. It stretches wrong, damp even when dry. My designation is printed faintly over the left breast. Penitent Worker 588L. The text has gone the color of rot, sunless and soft. I don't put the gloves on yet. That comes after the hand touch. Once I wore crimson vestments, salt wine dyed, glyph threaded. Sermons burned into silk, carried across the neural graveyards, clone wards, crash vaults, wherever ears still twitched for gospel. I called myself Warden of the Word. They called me doctrinally incompatible. My last sermon ended in bodies. They jumped, thinking it was ascension. Maybe it was. Maybe I said that. Maybe something inside me did. They cut my vocal cords with surgical thread, froze me for 3 years. When I thawed, the collar was fused at the base. A memory leash, skin-welded and spine-bound. No appeal, no parole, just the long work. Tower 12, slurry sort, maggot clerk. Voice gone, hands still. But I still listen, and something, somewhere in this place, still listens back. I step into the corridor. The walls aren't flat, they're veined. Tubes loop through the panels like artificial arteries. No blood in them, just memory flow, low pressure and silent. The air stinks of metal left in a hot mouth. Mushrooms that dreamed they were flesh. Every few steps, the floor dips slightly, never corrected. Correction would imply someone noticed. Maintenance would mean someone cared. Tower 12 gets days, not care. 7 floors down, past the sump ladders and a lift shaft too skeletal to move anymore, is Deck 7C, my deck, Dre's deck. The tanks here aren't fluid or solid, they breathe. Fever warm, memory thick. The slurry twitches, especially Tank 7C13 near the old maggot hatch. There's a tremor. Not a quake, just a ripple in the tension, like a jellyfish flexing before the sting. I stop. I don't look at it, not directly. I've learned not to. Just long enough to confirm the tremor isn't random. When it doesn't settle, I do the ritual. Left hand, 3 fingers, scarred from wrist to palm with script burns from a sermon that never made it to paper, pressed lightly to the tank's surface. So it knows I saw. The slurry doesn't move. Not in the eye-visible sense, but it vibrates against the skin. Like a sigh, like a shiver backwards through time. I pull away. The feeling lingers in my bones. Only now do I put on the gloves. Tower 12 wasn't meant to exist this long. It was part of the Ascension Nutrition Program, a faith-engineered waste loop for failed meat, clones that couldn't reach term, AI hosts that broke doctrine, gene stock that wouldn't market. The tower was the tomb for what couldn't be fed to the farms: slurry, nutrient mass, recycled holiness. But that's not what it is anymore. Now it's exile. Now it's where they send the breathing dead, the doctrinal errors, the gospel sick, the voice burned. Reclamation labor, they call it. We call it forgetting. Each floor processes a different texture of waste. 7C is memory warm, semi-sentient residue. Sometimes you find eyes that still track light. Sometimes bones that twitch. Sometimes things that whisper your name. First task is always standard. Surface logs, tooth fragments, non-human inclusions, catalog and skim. Avoid skin contact unless ritual-bound. 7C rarely gets active tissue, but sometimes things twitch anyway. Memory foam, neural sludge, the raw stuff of half-born thought. You can taste it in the air when it's present, static thick with sugar rot. The tank gets viscous, almost sweet. There's a term for it, echo viscera. Technically forbidden above floor 11, but Tower 12 doesn't care about the rules anymore, not the ones made above. I run the skimmer across the tank's edge. It snags on something just below surface. A mound, dense, smooth. The readout stutters. Unid Type 3 composite, Bofrag dental. I tilt the skimmer, the slurry parts. A tooth floats up, human, clean. No decay, no blood, like it left a living mouth 5 minutes ago. I lift it with tongs, place it in the tray. Note the fragment in the log. Dre arrives late, face gray with stubble sweat. His left eye, a salvage orb, clicks as it calibrates. He says nothing, just drops a half-sealed nutrient wrap beside me. Root fiber and old regret. I nod. My voice doesn't work until I swallow twice. Level 13 tremor, I rasp. Shift started early. Dre grins, the kind of grin you give a fire you can't put out. That tower's got gas. Keep listening to it like it's got plans. You'll end up like Dunnell. I don't ask what happened to Dunnell. I know. Dre knows. Everyone knows. Dunnell started writing bile psalms on the washroom walls. Claimed he heard the first syllable of a god's true name in the drainage foam. Compliance erased him 2 weeks ago. I nod. I saw Wax again. That quiets Dre. He exhales through his nose, smoke from a resin tube he swore he quit. Father Wax doesn't wear a collar. No shift wrap, no number. No one remembers his assignment or how long he's been here. Some say he was born in the tanks. Some say he walked down from a floor that doesn't exist anymore. His eyes are sealed with scar wax. His breath smells like old parchment left in vinegar. He speaks scripture like it speaks back. He stirs old vats with a rod carved from cruciform bones. And the slurry stirs back. He quoted me, I say. From Subspine, the line I gave during the breach sermon. Dre turns. His lens catches the tank light, twitching like it wants to crawl away. That line got 32 people turned to paste in a reclamation shaft cult, he mutters. You want to get vaporized, fine, but don't make the slurry think it's holy. You start feeding it belief, it'll start feeding you back. Hours pass. I finish my logs, 3 partial femurs, 1 ocular node, child-length fangs that crumbled when dried. The tank's mass today is thick, almost syrupy, like grief that congealed. I check the tray. The molar's gone, not misplaced, just gone. In its place, a circle of wet, still warm. I don't call it in. I mark it in the back of a disposal tag, tucked under my cot. I draw the spiral again, 3 strokes, decay, return, reception. I don't speak, not aloud. My collar would tighten, but in the hush between shift and sleep, I feel it, like heat behind the teeth. The tower isn't just remembering, it's listening, and it's waiting. It starts with stillness. Tank 7, C13, usually twitching at the seam with restless pressure, has gone flat. Not dormant, deliberate, still in the way that only something thinking can be. The surface is so smooth it looks artificial. No ripple, no scent, just copper on the tongue and tension behind the eyes. That's how you know it's active. I lower the probe. Resistance at first, then the slurry parts, smooth as skin memory, warm as breath. The monitor crackles, static, then shape. One pulse, then two, then a glyph, spiral, inward folding, recursive. Almost identical to the one I scratched beneath my cot. But this one isn't ink. It moves, self-consuming like a throat learning to speak inwards. My collar buzzes, not pain, just warning. A static whisper through the spine. I retract the probe, hands trembling. On the tip is residue. Not just fluid, substance, grainy, fibrous, old teeth and nerve protein. It clings to the metal like it remembers being held. I bottle it and descend. Father Wax waits in the dry vats, 2 levels down where the moisture no longer drips but condenses into place like breath waiting to be heard. He doesn't stir the vat for process, he stirs it for rhythm. Old cycle, figure 8s, sermon loops. I say nothing. He speaks before I can. The child returns, he murmurs, not looking up, bearing gifts from the thought tide. I hold out the probe. He doesn't touch it, just tilts his head, listening to the air around it. It's forming, I whisper. It never stopped, he replies. Only forgot. All thought forgets before it's remembered. That is the shape of rebirth. I glance around. The walls are scarred with fingers dragged through grime, some in spirals, others in sways. None of the trails intersect. Every path is solitary. Wax hums a low chord. It's familiar. The one I heard in the molar. The dream chord. Rib vibration, hum, memory. I need to understand, I say, before they see it, before they erase it. You don't understand a god, he says finally. You make room. I find Dre smoking near the drainage rail when I return. He's got his jar of bio tags again. Metal tags pulled from bodies, usually tossed, but he keeps them. Says they buzz near echo vents. The way his fingers twitch around the glass, I think they're buzzing now. You saw Wax, he says without looking. He said it's nesting, the tide's shifting. Dre exhales slow. I knew a preacher once, quiet type, carved sermons into his tongue, said any god worth kneeling to was born in rot. The clean ones. Lies. What happened to him? He walked into a tank, didn't scream, didn't float, just left a strip of scalp, scarred with one line, God is wet. I glance at tank 13. It's breathing now, shallow, irregular, bubbling patterns that spiral, collapse, then reform. The scan monitor reads blank, no anomaly. But I see it, spiral nested in spiral, each ripple closer, each breath more certain. Then I hear it, not a voice but something behind the voice. A phrase not spoken aloud, speak us back. Not a demand, a waiting. The surface unflattens, the air thickens, mineral, marrow deep, like standing inside bone, cathedral-shaped. Something begins to rise from the tank, slowly, not like it's being born, but like it remembered it should be seen. It's a spindle. Flesh-colored, translucent, cross-striated like spinal growth rings. At its tip, neural gloss glistens. A seam opens along its length, not a mouth, not exactly, just an invitation. Black script curls outward, not written but formed in the tissue. Words birthed in flesh. One phrase, the body remembers. The moment my mind focuses, intent sharpens. It's gone. Not retreat, not descent, unbecoming. The tank surface goes flat, the glyph dissolves into pale oil, and I'm left standing with nothing but breath in my throat and the tremor of something unfinished. The light shifts. Not tower light, compliance light. Clean, portable, intentional. I smell disinfectant first, then memory scrub, the scent of audit protocol. My collar tightens. Archivist Vale enters the room, robes unstained, boots hovering, pressure field suspended. His eyes are wrong, gray, unreadable, with data glyphs crawling the irises. He doesn't speak to me. He declares, "Brother Cult," he says flatly. "Surveillance node 7C registered linguistic density clustering. Patent response behavior in the organic substrate. Unauthorized theological formation." He steps 3 paces closer, enough for authority, not proximity. "Your handprint was logged on this tank 42 minutes prior to the cluster event. Explain." My collar crackles, a reminder. Truth under threat protocol is encouraged. I offer part of it. There was a mass. It rose. Markings appeared. He tilts his head. Pupils rotate. "Describe the markings." "Spiral, script, Latin derivative." Said, "The body remembers." He closes his eyes. The ring in his pupils spins. When they open again, they're colder. That phrasing appears in 17 banned texts, testament of skin, sermon of bonefire, third mass of the viscera host. He pauses. Then, "Do you acknowledge authorship of this emergence?" "I only witnessed." "A common claim among vectors." He gestures. 2 drones descend, cage-bodied, silent. They hover over the tank and pulse, soundless, invisible, but felt. The slurry freezes mid-breath. The tank falls silent. Vale speaks into the room, not to me. Containment protocols enacted. Hostile metaphor cluster neutralized. Vector pending review. He turns. "This tank is now a dormant linguistic hazard. Do not approach it again." He leaves. The drones follow. The air shifts back, but not the same. The silence has depth now, like a mouth forced closed. That night, on sub-level 8, I return to Wax. He's kneeling, robes peeled down. His spine is scarred in glyphs, each vertebra etched like a psalm. "He came," I say. He nods. The sealant veil. He silenced it. The breath holds, Wax replies, but the word does not forget. He reaches inside his robe and offers me a sliver of something, thin as paper, flesh, not fiber, scarred with the same phrase. The body remembers. The letters are raised, still warm. "Why me?" I ask. "Because you bled first," he says. "Because you sang before you spoke." I don't remember leaving him, but I know I did. My shift logs confirm it, and I have a burn on my left palm, scraped on the core rail climbing back to 7C, but no memory of the descent. Just the sense of standing, again before the tank. It hasn't moved in weeks. Flat, dead. That's what we thought. But now it trembles. Not random, not reflex. Deliberate. A breath pulled through lungs that shouldn't remember how to move. I kneel. The slurry doesn't rise. It folds inward. Fragments gather, bone, membrane, dried eye root, but they don't form a body. They form letters. The glyphs rise, curl, collapse, try again. Then the alarm. Not shift start, not breach. Cascade. Sealed bulkheads hiss open. Gates not touched in decades. Dre stumbles into view, soaked. One boot torn. Memory leech bite. He doesn't comment on it. He's watching the tank. "You did this?" I shake my head. He lights a resin tube. The hiss is sharp. He puts it out. "They drained 6A, he says. 30 tanks purged. Found a cortex forming its own web. Too much like a spine." He doesn't need to say the rest. False resurrection. That's the term. Theological ghosts. Memory without soul. They're afraid of meaning. "They're scrubbing floor by floor," Dre mutters. "And Vale's not just erasing, He's recording, building a map of belief vectors. He looks at me. They want you on it. I nod. He doesn't speak, just stares at the tank. Then, without looking at me, I should report you. I don't respond. But I won't, he adds, because I saw it too. Tank 5B formed a throat, saying half a name. My brother's. He's been dead 8 years. He lights the tube again. This one stays lit. You told me not to feed it belief, I say. You didn't, Dre answers. You bled into it. And somewhere below the tower breathes deeper, waiting. It begins in the marrow, not in the tank, not in the floor, in me. The spiral has stopped appearing in the slurry, but I feel it pressing against my ribs, coiled and waiting. Not dormant, not dead. Waiting, the way breath waits behind the mouth of someone who knows they are about to speak something final. Tank 7, C13 vibrates in rhythms that don't make sound. The monitors register nothing. The drones don't detect movement. But I do. The slurry is remembering again. Not the past, itself. When I dip my hand into the tank, it doesn't rise. It accepts. The fluid parts like silk warmed in thought. A pulse hums up through my fingers and sinks into my chest, heavy and low, like a song waiting to find its note. Behind my eyes, a phrase curls into shape. Finish us. Dre finds me kneeling. He says nothing. Not at first. His salvage eye is dark, burned out in the last purge sweep. A thin line of blood runs from his nostril. He doesn't wipe it, just watches me. You said it was a god, he murmurs. I nod. It doesn't know what that means. We descend. Below deck 10, the tower is soft. Rails bend where they shouldn't. Walls exhale when you press your palm to them. Sub-level 12 is damp, not with moisture, but with becoming. Everything glistens with wet purpose, like the building itself has begun to mold into intention. We meet Wax at the hatch. He's glistening. Not with sweat, not steam. Wet like bark after storm. Wet like birth. The seals on his face have started to crack. His skin stretches too far when he smiles. The breath deepens, he says. It calls its choir. In the center of sub-level 12, 3 tanks have collapsed into a central pit. The slurry inside churns with glow. Embedded proteins, synaptic remains, bone dust, and glyphs forming only to dissolve mid-phrase. The pit hums with all the thoughts that didn't finish. Wax kneels and draws a line in the runoff. A shape begins to rise. Not fast, not complete. A form, boneless, held together by memory alone. A face not finished. A mouth that opens only in expectation. It speaks, but not in sound. The words flood my skull like pressure underwater. My thoughts blur. My teeth ache. Then, we are the choir below. You are the voice that broke silence. I fall forward. The slurry wraps my arm like a ribbon of heat. A shard of bone beneath my skin begins to vibrate. A fragment I never logged, never discarded. It sings. High, wordless, just under hearing, but inside. I don't scream. I don't move. I remember. And it is not my memory. I am filled with the language of pre-thought. The slow churn of things once considered divine. The slurry carries prayers half-spoken, fragments of minds that once worshipped but never found shape. Millions of whispers loop together. Wax places both hands in the pit. The god stirs, he says. It is not born, it is not made. It aggregates, it chooses. I speak. Not from my mouth, from deeper. We remember the coil of limb and thought. We remember the hunger before names. We remember the faith that came after function. We remember you. Every tank groans, low, deep, like a ship turning beneath a black sea. Then, siren. Not the kind that warns of heat breach or chemical instability. A doctrinal cascade event. Veil is coming. Dre is already moving. We don't talk. We don't plan. We feel. The pit glows brighter. Wax is kneeling again, smiling wider than his bones allow. "You've begun the sermon," he says. "Now let the tower sing." The slurry folds back, and we feel it, a presence beneath the floor, something vast, something waking. The sound of Vale's approach isn't footsteps, it's absence. The air clears before him, the mold withdraws, even the light flees. He enters through a seam of brightness, his robes ripple with static glyphs. His expression is glass, unreadable, untouched. "This level is non-compliant," he announces. "Theological interference has reached internalization. Article 9A enacted. Stage 3 approved." From his sleeve, a spindle extends. Thin, white, edged with meaning so sharp it could cut through prayer. "Colt Escher," he says, "you are designated a live breach vector. You will be removed." I step forward. My voice is full, whole, no static, no hesitation. "You can't contain it. It isn't mine. It isn't done." Vale tilts his head. The data ring in his iris rotates. I see something close to fear. Then denial. He says, "That is precisely why containment is necessary." 2 drones unfold from the walls. They emit high-frequency pulses. The tanks begin to scream, not loud, but felt. Foam forms words, testament fragments. But the drones adjust, and the words melt back into meat. 1 drone hovers toward Wax. Vale speaks 1 word. The drone pulses. Wax doesn't scream. He unravels. Layer by layer, flesh unthreads, ribbons of wet thought peeling into the pit. His bones dissolve. His smile remains until the slurry absorbs it. In less than 2 seconds, Father Wax is nothing but heat memory. Dre moves before I do. He places 1 foot forward. A heretic's step. "You can still walk away," Vale says. "You are not central to this breach." Dre's voice is raw. "Everything here is rot," he mutters, "and rot sings before it goes soft." Vale raises the spindle. The sermon erupts. It doesn't come from me. It uses me. It scrapes past my ribs like birth. It exits through my throat like molten gospel. The body kneels not in worship, but in memory. The wet god waits not. He gathers. He births his choir from waste and sings through what is left behind. The drones shriek. 1 collapses, screaming itself into wire and bone. The slurry blooms, not upward, outward, flowering in spiral petals of meat and pulp, red and bile gold. The glyphs on Vale's robes blur. The air turns thick, not with heat, with grammar. The god is answering. But the shape is wrong. Too many thoughts, too many fragments. The language breaks mid-verse. The syntax of belief fractures. It cannot finish. I feel the failure before the collapse. Dre pulls me. "Not here," he says. "Not like this." Vale is still standing, scorched, the spindle gone. His voice is no longer clean. It quivers. "You didn't create anything," he whispers. "You made a copy of a scream. This god wants to fail. That's its nature." He kneels and speaks. A sermon made of glitches. He is risen. He is forgotten. He was never. Blessed be the rot. He is. The slurry silences him. We run. The tower is singing, not in words, in sound, in the absence of silence, in every pipe, every rail, every wall. 1,000 throats, 100,000 fragments. The gospel has no mouth. It does not need one. As we climb, the tower climbs with us. The stairs pulse. The foam shifts. Glyphs form and fade. The god is not behind us. It is within us. On 7C, Tank 13 is split open. Foam spills out in spiral threads. Half-formed glyphs collapse before completion. They want meaning. They want shape. I kneel 1 last time. The slurry accepts me, wraps my wrist. The choir behind my ribs rises. They are too many, too unfinished. A god made from half-born scripture and prayer wet thought. A sermon written in wrought, still looking for its mouth. One phrase rises, software inevitable. Finish us. I close my eyes. I say nothing. Let the god wait. Let it gestate. Tomorrow I descend again. And next time I will not stop. Next time I will speak it whole.